In West Texas, one of the most dangerous jobs on an oil rig is beginning to move behind a computer screen. Instead of workers standing beside massive steel pipes, robotic equipment can now pick them up, position them, connect them, and move them through the drilling process. And this is no longer just a demonstration. Now has two automated drilling rigs operating in the Permian Basin, the giant oil-producing region covering parts of Texas and New Mexico. The company operates more than 30 rigs there and says it wants roughly a quarter of that fleet automated in 2027 and half by 2028. That does not mean America's oil rigs are suddenly empty, but it does mean some of the work that once required people standing next to thousands of pounds of moving steel could increasingly be done by machines. And if this spreads across the industry, the biggest change may not be how America finds oil, it may be who, or what, is doing the work. The reason oil companies are interested is surprisingly simple. A drilling rig is full of repetitive movements involving extremely heavy equipment. Workers have traditionally helped move long sections of drill pipe, position them above the well, connect them, disconnect them, and repeat the process again and again as the well becomes deeper. These areas can be dangerous. OSHA says struck by, caught in, and caught between accidents are the leading cause of fatalities at oil and gas well sites. So companies are trying to move people away from what the industry calls the red zone, the places closest to moving machinery and suspended equipment. On Exxon's automated rigs, robotic systems supplied by drilling contractor Helmerich & Payne can handle steel pipe weighing around 2,000 pounds. Instead of physically guiding that pipe on the rig floor, an operator can control and supervise the machinery from a protected cabin. But the robots are only half the story. Modern drilling rigs are also becoming giant computer-controlled machines. Sensors constantly track what the rig is doing. Software can control repeated drilling operations more consistently. Remote teams can watch performance from hundreds of miles away. The goal is not simply to build a robot that copies a worker. The goal is to connect the machinery, software, and drilling decisions into one system, and that can change how quickly a well is completed. One of Exxon's automated rigs drilled a horizontal section roughly 2 miles long in a little over 6 days. Exxon said it was the third fastest result in the company's history. Saving time matters because drilling rigs are expensive operations. If automation removes delays, performs repetitive movements more consistently, and keeps people away from dangerous areas, companies have several reasons to expand it. But this is where the story becomes more complicated. Because a safer rig with fewer people on the drilling floor also raises an obvious question. What happens to the workers? America still employs tens of thousands of roustabouts, derrick operators, and drilling machine operators across the oil and gas industry. Automation does not mean all of those jobs disappear. A robot that moves drill pipes still needs maintenance. Automated equipment still needs technicians. Software still needs operators. And drilling decisions still involve engineers, supervisors, and experienced crews, especially when something unexpected happens. Exxon itself describes the change as moving workers away from dangerous tasks so they can concentrate on planning and other operations. But over time, the number of people required at an individual rig could still change. The valuable worker of the future may spend less time manually moving equipment and more time monitoring machines, diagnosing problems, and managing automated systems. And that creates a difficult question for the industry. If you worked on an oil rig, would you rather operate the machinery from behind a screen, even if it eventually meant fewer workers were needed on each rig? Because automation also has limits. Robots work best when the environment and task are predictable. Oil drilling is not always predictable. Equipment breaks. Geological conditions change. Sensors can fail. Software can make mistakes. And installing sophisticated robotics on thousands of existing rigs costs money. That is why today's oil field is not an army of completely autonomous machines. Most systems automate specific jobs while humans remain responsible for the overall operation. But companies such as Nabors, Halliburton, SLB, and Helmerich & Payne are all developing systems that push drilling further in that direction. And the technology is expanding beyond America. Automated drilling systems are already being deployed or tested in places including Oman, Guyana, and Indonesia. That means what is happening in the Permian Basin could become part of a much larger transformation. Over the next few years, the most dangerous and repetitive rig floor jobs are likely to face automation first. After that, More drilling decisions could move into software. More experts could supervise operations remotely. And one person may eventually oversee tasks that once required several people standing directly beside the equipment. The oil rig probably will not become human-free anytime soon, but it may become a place where humans increasingly manage the work instead of physically performing it. And that is the real change. The robot is not simply arriving on America's oil rigs, it is changing where the worker stands, what the worker does, and eventually how many people it takes to drill a well. What comes next is not an oil field without humans. It is an oil field where being good with machines may matter just as much as being strong enough to work beside them.